So, what did we learn? When you do a podcast slash interview, make sure you press start recording. Otherwise, you could lose everything. Luckily, Lage Bergman took a backup recording for me, so I was able to get that imported and you're able to see the conversation we had. Either way, Lage Bergman from BergBerg Games. We're talking about Stig, his initial introduction to game development, the strategies he's taken. Sit down, take a look. If you enjoy, like, subscribe, all that nonsense, follow. I don't even know what this is going to be posted on, but whatever you can do to follow, please come along for the ride. Enjoy. Thank you very much for sitting with me, Lage. For those who don't know, Lage is the creator of Stig. It's a great little indie game. I got back from Melbourne and I was like, I've got some window where I know I've driven for 8 hours and I need to do something. So I sat down and played through the demo. There were a few parts where I was like, I'm gonna have to call this guy. His demo is unsolvable. It doesn't work out. It's not working. It's obviously bugged. And then I, a few minutes later, find the solution and be like, I'm glad I didn't message him. But yeah, so let's start with an easy one. What was the first video game you remember playing?
Yeah. So when I was young, I had the original Game Boy, like without color or anything. And
Yep.
I'm not sure at all where I got that from. I must have got it handed down by a cousin or something, because it's way older than
Yeah.
games that
Yeah.
were out when I was young. But I had a Jungle Book game on that
Okay.
device.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Any fun memories or?
Yeah, right. Me and my brother probably sitting
Yeah.
on the couch.
Yeah.
Two people hunkered over half of an iPhone screen at this point with no color. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I've got plenty of memories of that. Some of my best experiences playing with my brothers when I was growing up was convincing them that, hey, no, it's actually still my turn. That wasn't actually a death. And then realizing that I'm a horrible brother, years later, going like, oh, that was not very nice of me.
I was the youngest, so I was probably just watching most of the time, because I was so small I couldn't even finish the first level.
Fair enough. So what was the catalyst that got you into game development?
I was. Did you play a lot of Warcraft 3?
No, I didn't. I played a lot of StarCraft, the original, but not Warcraft.
Right. Well, we played a lot of Warcraft 3, and it was one of those standard games for LAN parties.
Yeah,
and they had the map editor there. I think StarCraft probably had the map editor.
Oh, yeah,
as well.
yeah. I messed around with the map editor as well, yeah.
Yeah, and it was quite complicated, or not complicated, but it had a lot of functionality. I never got around to actually writing scripts, but they had this if then else kind of logic you did with drop down UI. Yeah, and I messed around with that a lot. So every LAN party, it would be okay, first you have to play test my new map, and then that broke completely, and then now we can play War.
Now we can start playing
whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have fond experiences of because you could do your own mission briefings and everything for StarCraft 2, and you could import your own sound files and everything. I have some fond memories of getting my crappy little microphone and speaking in and trying to make the pre-mission briefing, saying oh, you gotta go do this and you gotta go hunt down these materials and everything. And there was then a situation where you had to do the subtitles, and then I would just type in something nonsense because I didn't want to transcribe what I said.
Right.
But no, I completely understand. I messed around with the same tools. I'm sure they were similar to Warcraft. But
that was super cool. But then sometime in high school, a friend of mine showed me Visual Studio, I think it was, C# programming on a school computer. And that got me kind of hooked, made me download that back at home. And I spent all night just programming until I had to go to bed to go to school. And I was like, okay, this is... If I have to choose a career now, because that was probably third year of high school, I was like, okay, if I can do programming for my day job, for work, I'm set.
Yeah, 100%. So you went and studied programming just as your main job, just to kind of get money in and everything and experience, I guess.
Yeah, I think it was partly, I don't know if I even knew there were game development specific universities or anything like that, but it was also people telling me like, if you make your hobby your job, it won't be as fun as a hobby anymore. So I was like, okay, maybe I can still get to do programming, but I could do like accounting software or some like boring programming, but still programming, and then my hobby can still be game development.
Yeah, I'm sure there's plenty of skills you can transfer over and everything as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Well,
so I studied software engineering was what I studied then.
Yeah, cool, easy. How would you recommend other people to get into indie game development?
It depends on, I guess, where you're at when you start. Like if you've never done any programming at all, I could see people trying something like the level editor of like StarCraft 2 or whatever is the hot shit right now. But other than that, probably I've never used Game Maker, but the impression I get is like that's good for beginners.
Okay. Yeah.
And if then I guess follow tutorials. Or if you want to like study software engineering, it's a really good like foundation, like all the data structure, algorithm, stuff like that. You'll need it eventually, and if you learn it on your own while making games, or if you learn it for school, depends on what you like to do, I suppose.
I like that the recommendation follows using pre-existing games and everything to script and create situations yourself. And it means you can go into something that you're already aware of, whether it be something like Gary's Mod or the StarCraft or Warcraft editor, and you're already playing with a game that you understand. I'm assuming it's a game that you would understand quite well, and you'd be able to kind of piece together what's happening and everything, even with if-then logic. I think that's a good answer, because for a lot of people, modding and just simple script editing and everything for existing games, that's like kind of their entry. Not a lot of people are going to have a finished product, and being able to just put a different skin into something, or being able to add a little extra, a gun or a feature into a pre-existing game, is I think a really good pathway, and I think that's a good recommendation.
Yeah, like what's the game? Do you know this game that takes place in like ancient Greece? I think it is, where you like kind of repeat the same day over and over or whatever.
Ancient Greece.
I can't remember the name, but my point is, I think it started out as a Skyrim mod. Like the whole game was a Skyrim mod, and people enjoyed it so much they were like, this mod is so good, it should be its own game. And only then did he like quit his day job, probably, like because there was so much interest. Like he knew the community wanted this thing, so he had his whole player base ready to with their wallets. He was like, okay, now I'm just gonna make it and sell it. Yeah, so you can get pretty far without making anything in an engine or something.
Yeah, and now that you've mentioned that, it's brought to mind, there was one really big standalone Skyrim mod that someone put together, and they released it, they got it all together, and they had Bungie knocking on the door saying, hey, we would like to pick you up. So, I definitely think modding is definitely a valid pathway to get into it. You can start with something as simple as, like, I'm just going to retexture this bow, or I'm just going to make this new companion. And you can slowly step further and further from there. Yeah. I think you've answered this next question that I'm going to ask, but I'll ask it anyway. And if you think there's anything you want to add, you can. How did you start developing games, and how does that differ from your current recommendation to start?
Yeah. So I was thinking about this earlier, actually, like, because what I've always done, and probably I'm still guilty of this, is like I have an idea, like I want to make this game, and then I find the bare minimum tools I need to make something like in that direction, and then whenever I get stuck, I find the next tool that I need to continue. But I'm not sure, because I'm doing this, eventually I require something complicated.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
perhaps if I'd actually like, I don't know, read a book on Godot or watched a full like some of those Udemy courses or anything
Yeah.
like that, maybe I'd know of tools earlier that would let me skip ahead 10 steps in one go.
Yeah.
I just don't have the patience for it.
Yeah, no, I completely understand about the patience thing. I've found myself as I'm learning Godot that the more I step forward and the more I learn, I'll go back to my previous code and be like, I can't believe I did it this way. This is so
Right.
bad. And I'm guilty of trying to set out to make this grand project, and I'm going to make a Star Fox type game, or I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and then realizing that I've bitten off more than I can chew. And what I've realized is with each attempt for those grand projects, I have actually built up knowledge of specific systems, and because I've built up knowledge of pathing. Like for instance, I did 3D pathing to try and make some Star Fox clone and everything, and with that I was able to figure out how the path follow system worked and everything in Godot, which was pretty great. But just from sitting down and hunting out and being like, okay, how do I do this next thing? How do I do this next thing? I built up a little bit of a tool, even if that product didn't make it to the market. I think that goes a bit like with what you were saying, where you're like, what do I do next? What do I need next? How do I do this? And you're just constantly building up knowledge that way.
Yeah, because it can also be like a big motivation to actually, use something for what you like. Not just like doing the 2D platformer tutorial because I have to in order to learn, but like actually make something for yourself can I think help you stay motivated.
Yeah, 100%. All right. So for Stig, is this the first game you've set out to create, or have you attempted other projects in the past?
Oh, I've attempted other projects. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Attempted. Yeah, it's the first game I released.
Yes. Okay.
Before, when I was in uni, it was usually me and my brother. He's like 2 years older than me, and he studied computer science. So we'd usually hang out in periods on and off, like once a week or something. And we've made, at first it was a fighting game, then it was some kind of mobile game. And none of them ever made it. It was Unity back then. Now I've switched over to Godot.
So you're using, that was my next question. So you're primarily using Godot these days?
Yeah. Although Stig is not Godot actually.
Okay.
No, it's React. It's like a JavaScript, the web development framework.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. That was actually, I didn't make Stig myself. I made it with my partner, my girlfriend.
Oh, okay. That must be Miriam.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
I saw it on the publisher page, and I was like, Miriam. And I was like, I don't know how to ask about Miriam, but I'm glad you brought it up. But so you made that together?
Yeah, and that was first of all like a great experience of like being able to, since it was a puzzle game, we could make paper prototypes and kind of solve each other's puzzles without coding anything. So at the start, that was we were quite far before we started coding at all.
Yeah.
But also like picking a technology that we both like use daily for our jobs that we're like good at, and that's also very limiting. I think that was one of the good things with that, was like we put ourselves in the box. Like there's no shaders, there's no physics, there's no particles. Like make it grid based and release it. So yeah.
Yeah, I you know what? You just hit the next question, my next question on the head, which was tell me about your puzzle creation methodology and how did you organize and create the puzzles. But it completely makes sense if you sat down and made paper puzzles together and you you're physically moving pieces around. That makes complete sense. How else did you kind of organize or create puzzles and scale puzzles for the final release?
Well, first of all, like the what would you call it? Like the before we started working on it. What do you call it? Like the research phase in the beginning.
The research. Let's go with that.
Yeah, we're playing Baba Is You, The Witness. We played Chants of Sennar, which is a really good, I think, probably not as well-known puzzle game, but it's really good too.
Okay.
So we had like puzzle games on our brains for a while there, and then we made those paper prototypes. Started like thinking, okay, could we make a puzzle game? And then the next breakthrough in the process was we made a level editor, or like a kind of a level editor, like a little puzzle internal UI tool where I could just like put out cells on the grid and place objects where I wanted, and then you could play the level in the editor. So I would like click something out really quick and ask Miriam, hey, could you come over and try this one? And then she'd find maybe a shortcut. She'd exploited it somehow, and I was like, okay, I need to fix this thing, and we could iterate pretty quickly using that tool.
I had issues with Baba Is You because when I first played it, I think that was like a fortnight gone because I was immediately hooked.
Yeah.
So I can
Right.
That it's very it's very simplistic, but it's also hooking into that programmer side of my brain where I'm just still like, oh, I can just break all the rules here. But
right.
Oh,
and then you realize like, oh, that's what they intended all along. Like, it's so well made.
Yeah, it's very well made, and I think some of the best stuff. I'm a big sucker from meta like levels of stuff where you're like where you're actually moving levels around and creating levels and everything at the end game where you're actually sneaking out, and I'm a sucker for that type of stuff. So when I got to that stuff in the final game, I was like, oh my gosh, this is
the first time you make like level is key and it just zooms out and you're like, what the hell is going on?
And then you push the key in the gates and everything. Oh, beautiful. Chef's kisses. Cool. So I guess you because you were working together, and especially with it being a puzzle game, that extra set of eyes probably was a massive help. Just being able to be like, oh, I didn't expect this. I didn't see that coming, or seeing it from a different perspective.
With puzzle games specifically, it's impossible to tell yourself if it's fun or not.
Yeah.
Because you've made a puzzle, you can't solve your own puzzle. It's like it's a paradox, impossible thing. You have to be more.
I never thought about that. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Because you'll know the solutions to everything you create. So with the creation process, was there any specific method you took when you were creating it? Did you just slap things together and then see what fit, or did you have a specific process that you took?
There's one specific process that I think at this point is quite well known in like the puzzle maker community, but we learned it from his name is Patrick Traynor. He made Patrick's Parabox. It's this kind of recursive box pushing game. And he made some blog post about how you put all your mechanics on the x-axis of a grid and the y-axis of a grid, and then you try to check boxes that you've made one level for every combination of mechanics.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's a good way of doing it, especially when I can see that as you get through some of the puzzles in your game, like the color pushing and box moving, and actually what I thought was really cool was the clear out function where you basically step on the X and then you can restart and then you can keep rebuilding that. I could see how listing all those mechanics and on both axes and then filling in would actually allow you to have unique puzzles for every step of the way. That's no, I've never heard of that. So that's really cool to hear. I'm actually tempted to steal that. So
do it's and having an easy level editor at that point is also really useful, because then you can just say, okay, I need this kind of block and this kind of lever or whatever, and you just put them in the level editor, and you have a blank level with just those two things. And you try to like, okay, what happens if I push this one on the other, or if I walk on this first and then I push that, and you can just kind of find some interesting interaction between the two, and then try to make a level where finding that interesting interaction is the solution. That I think is like the key to a good puzzle, when you like learn something like, oh, I can do that thing.
I guess you could also start with the solution in mind and then walk backwards and be like, okay, I want the final thing to be something like this. I want to have these lined up. How can I position everything to get to that final position as well? But,
yeah, that's
cool. During the creation and release process of Stig? What was simple in theory, but was in reality was way harder than you expected?
Oh, there's one specific technical thing, which is this is very minor spoiler, but at one point we introduce conveyor belt functionality, like a tile that if something is on it, it moves. I think in Babase U it would be the is shift would be the keyword there.
Yeah, okay.
Because our the tech stack we used is built around, I think, one thing moving at a time, pretty much. But as soon as okay, you can move and then something else moves at the same time, and what happens if you try to move to the same tile at the same time? You know?
Yeah.
It's like I was just like, okay, we can use a conveyor belt. That could be fun. And then it was like weeks of just like, what happens if this thing and that thing and this other thing? Like, it was just a rabbit hole of weird mechanics that we didn't anticipate at all.
Yeah. I'm really sorry to say this. My laptop went to sleep and it stopped the recording. Are you recording on your end?
Yeah,
Oh, thank you so much.
I haven't really checked that.
I'm looking at it and I'm like, no. We've done like 22 minutes. So I'm thank you so much for that. I'm really sorry.
Dude, I'm hoping it works.
I'm so sorry to do that to you. Anyway, we'll just trust that it's working. We'll keep moving on. How is the publication and wishlisting process on Steam and itch.io? Do you have any tips for anyone releasing their own game?
I'd say since itch.io is free to upload, right? At least it was. It was really useful to make some kind of proof of concept, like a small thing without graphics or anything, and just put it on itch and get feedback that way.
Yeah, okay.
So that was our first thing. Like we didn't even know this would be a full release, but we were like, okay, we can put what we have out there right now, and then we kept the itch page and kept adding. Once we made the Steam page, we uploaded our first demo. We made sure that the demo was on itch as well.
Yeah, okay. Sorry, I don't have a lot of experience with itch, so I didn't know it was a free process or anything.
I think what they do is they let you upload for free, but they take a percentage of sales.
Yeah, okay.
Not like Steam where you have to pay the $100 upfront. So it was sort of a smaller step to get something on itch.
Yeah. Okay.
So I would recommend that. Sorry, what was the question? The release process and the
sorry. So I guess for itch it was kind of already like a free process and everything, and you already were using it to do your demos back and forth. But on the Steam side, how was the publication and wishlisting process? Is there anything you would recommend going into it for anyone?
Yeah, we like I said, it was first on itch, and we knew that people we got some positive feedback. That's step one, and then we put the Steam page out, and then we were pretty quick to get the demo up, and then applying to festivals. We didn't get a lot of wish lists organically. None of us were on Twitter or Blue Sky for the first 6 months of development or something. So nobody knew about the game. So expecting wishlist was not something we expected. So we entered the Cerebral Puzzle Showcase. That's a puzzle game festival on Steam. And that's when we got our first 200 to maybe 300 wishlists or something.
Okay. So that was from just the festival itself, Yeah,
it was maybe we got to from itch, because as soon as we had the Steam page, it was like, okay, let's put the link on itch to wishlist on Steam, and make sure that people know that the full game will be on Steam and not on itch. That got some traffic, so maybe we had like 100 wish lists before the Cerebral Puzzle and up to 300 after. So like still an increase of 100%. So I can very much recommend festivals.
Yeah. Okay. How was the application process for the festivals? Was it difficult? Did they have any key? Did Steam have any key barriers in their way for it, or was it pretty straightforward?
I think it was pretty straightforward, actually.
Okay.
They require you to have a demo, so that's
of course.
and I think I'm not sure if a trailer was a requirement or if we just felt that the game would look kind of the Steam page would look a bit barren without a trailer. Like it looks more professional if we have the trailer. So that when we got accepted, we were like, okay, let's shift focus from development to trailer making and learn that whole process.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Sorry, I've got the dogs downstairs that have decided that there's a moving bush outside, so it must be alerted and the house be alerted. So sorry about the barking that was just up and behind.
It's one of those weird Australian moving bushes.
Yeah. We have them everywhere, which means they never stop barking. Cool. All right. With your how's your next project? So your next project's been in Godot. How do you find working with Godot?
I like it. It's of course very similar to Unity, I'd say.
Yeah.
But some things are better. Some things are just different. You just have to kind of Google how do I make this thing in Unity in Godot instead, and there's usually a lot of like Stack Overflow posts about that. So, but I like Godot. It's definitely I don't know if this is something everyone talks about, but it feels way more lightweight. Like Unity, the whole installation process is longer. The files are bigger. The engine makes my computer kind of fans go a bit faster. So Godot, it feels more like nimble in that way.
I've noticed the same
like
thing. I messed around a little bit with Unity just to get the experience. I did a few live streams and everything, and man, those live streams were a mistake because I was working at a glacial space when I was going, how do I do this in Godot? I know how to do this in Godot, but how do I do this in Unity? And
so you went the other way. You started with Godot and went.
I started with Godot. I used so back in the day, I messed around with this other game engine called like JMonkey Engine, which was a Java one, and oh boy, it did not work well with me. I was like, the reason I messed around with it was because I did a little bit of a game development course thing before I pivot shifted and went to do system administration fully. And that was the game engine they decided to use because it was like, it's free, it's open source, you don't have to pay any money for it and everything, but it was also hot garbage. I did not enjoy. I guess the big problem with it is the fact that I had to use Java for the entire thing, and I do not like Java. But but a little bit later on, I was like, I've been doing IT support now and IT administration and IT engineering for like 7 years now, and I initially wanted to go in and make games, so I started. I went up and like, oh, what's the latest game engines? And then I downloaded Unity first, and that was very heavy and very very imposing and very very intimidating. And then I went to Unreal and again heavy, imposing, intimidating, used up a whole bunch of my hard drive. And then I think I want to say 3.3 Godot. I gave that a shot. I don't know what the exact version was, but the fact that I could download it in seconds and have something ready was kind of the thing that made me go, oh. And on top of that, the fact that I didn't have to pay royalties back to those companies kind of was a big incentive. And I've had this conversation with a few people now where they're like, oh, you're not going to make a game that's going to make so much money that you're going to have to hit those caps. I'm like, well, you kind of get into the hobby to hope that happens.
Right, so, right.
Yeah.
It's really demotivating to like, if you reach success, you fail.
Yeah. But so I was like, a big thing for me was like, okay, well, if I'm gonna pick an engine, I'm gonna pick one that's the one that I'm not gonna have to pay kickbacks for, and the other thing is it's way lighter. It doesn't chug the same way that the other two feels like it. I'm sure it's stronger and it's got more tools, but when you're sitting there making your own little prototypes, I don't mind making those tools myself from scratch.
No, for sure.
Yeah. So with your new project, is there anything you found interesting learning? I know you're making that chess. I don't know what to call it. A chess-like is probably the best word.
Yeah, right. Something chess adjacent. Yeah.
Chess adjacent.
I started with the naive approach of using like object-oriented data structures for the whole board and stuff. And then when I got to the AI part of making an opponent I could play against, I think in the beginning it was, I could look, one move ahead. It could see like if I do this and the opponent does that, and it would think for like 20 seconds.
Yeah.
I was like, okay. This is not really feasible for a commercial product, I think.
Okay.
So then I had to bite the bullet. I knew of like complicated. I knew there were complicated data structures specific for chess AI programming.
Yeah.
But I was like, maybe I don't have to use them. Maybe I don't have to learn. And then I was like, okay, I do have to. And it's something called bit boards, where you utilize the fact that a 64-bit integer is basically a matrix of 8 by 8 bits, right?
Okay. Yep.
So instead of using one matrix for your board with like different classes for each piece, you have one 64-bit integer for each piece. So like where are the pawns would be ones and zeros for the spaces they occupy.
Okay, yeah.
And it's like, because then you can do bitwise operations, which are super fast to move stuff around. And also use bit masks to check, like, where are the pieces right now? Do they cause check or whatever?
Okay.
I'm not an expert still, but I've got it to a point where it doesn't think forever, so I'm glad.
Yeah, that's good to hear. I'm sitting there going like, yes, I have to pretend I know how these things work. I'm just gonna keep nodding and pretending I know, but in reality, But yeah, cool. Is there any new skills or anything you've learned from your current project that have you've kind of built off from previous projects, or?
Well, I would say it's not like a technical thing, but trying to think about the project management and scope management side of things, I'd say is something that I've like unconsciously accumulated for the years that I've been attempting to make games, right?
Yeah.
Right now I was like, okay, for this to work, I would need to solve the AI, like the whole performance issue. That's like a quality gate, or what would you call it in something like that? Like, this is a must-have. Like, I cannot make the game without it. And also there's one like UX aspect of trying to explain how a chess piece works to someone who doesn't play chess. So I figured those two things, and I put those up front, even if I was like, oh, it's scary, it's hard, I don't want to do it. I was like, okay, those are I don't want to make a game for a year and then fail on the fact that I can't figure these things out. So,
well, there you go. Where's the best place for people to check you out?
Right now it's Blue Sky. It's at BergBerg Games. Because my last name has a Berg in it, and Miriam's last name has a Berg in it as well. So we're developing together. BergBerg.
Makes sense.
Twice the power that sank the Titanic.
Hopefully it's not sinking the. I was going to go for Berg cubed, but not square. It's Berg squared, not cubed. But you know what? We'll go for iceberg. That's great. thanks for sitting down and having the chat with me.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, 100%. Hopefully, if this takes off, I'll have you back on. We can have another discussion about something else, and we'll go from there. But thanks very much for stopping by.
Thank you so much.
And stop. So I haven't actually done the interview yet. This is all a lie, and the truck's just gone by. Whatever, we're keeping it. It's just a lovely, lovely location. So I thought I'd record the outro here. If you enjoyed the conversation, please subscribe, follow, all that good stuff. And yeah, enjoy.